Imagine this, man. It's a crisp fall evening in 2019, and you're sitting around a backyard fire pit with your buddy Mark, a guy you've known since college, someone you've always looked up to. Mark's the kind of dude who's got it all together. He's a doctor, a dad of two, the guy who graduated top of his class at med school, and still finds time to volunteer at the local clinic. You're cracking open a couple of beers, talking about life, when out of nowhere, Mark leans in, his voice low, and says something that stops you cold. You know, I've been reading up on vaccines, and I'm starting to think they might be doing more harm than good. I'm not sure I want to vaccinate my kids anymore. You stare at him, your jaw practically hitting the ground. This is Mark, the guy who spent years studying medicine, who saved lives, who you trust with your own health in a heartbeat. And now he's telling you he's buying into some anti-vax conspiracy he found online? You try to laugh it off, thinking he's joking. But the look in his eyes tells you he's dead serious. You leave that night feeling uneasy, wondering how someone so smart could believe something so, well, stupid. Now, let's pause right there, bro, because I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking, man, that's wild, but that's not me. I'd never fall for something like that. But here's the thing. What if I told you that stupidity isn't just about being dumb? What if I told you it's a hidden force, something so sneaky, so powerful, that it can take even the sharpest minds, like Mark's, and turn them into instruments of destruction? What if I told you that the greatest threat to our world isn't evil people doing evil things, but good people, smart people, people just like you and me who've simply stopped thinking? In the next 30 minutes, we're diving deep into one of the most unsettling ideas ever conceived, a theory that explains why smart people do dumb things, and how you can break free before it's too late. This isn't just some random idea I'm throwing out there, man. This comes from a guy named Dietrich Bonhoeffer, a German pastor who saw this force up close and personal during one of the darkest times in history. Bonhoeffer called it the power of stupidity, and he didn't mean low IQ or lack of education. He meant something way scarier, the kind of stupidity that makes intelligent, well-meaning people, like your buddy Mark, abandon their own reasoning, their own values, and start believing things that can hurt themselves, their families, even the world around them. Picture this. A renowned scientist spreading dangerous misinformation that leads to a public health crisis. A loving teacher endorsing ideas that harm her students. A devoted parent making choices that put their own kids in danger. These aren't evil people, bro. They're not monsters. They're just like us. Folks with good hearts who've fallen into a trap they didn't even see coming. Let's go back to Mark for a second. After that night by the fire pit, you do some digging. Turns out, Mark had been scrolling through Reddit late at night, exhausted after long shifts at the hospital, when he stumbled across a thread about vaccines causing autism. Now, you and I know that's been debunked a million times, starting with the guy who started it all, Dr. Andrew Wakefield, back in 1998. Wakefield published a study linking vaccines to autism, but it was later proven to be fraudulent. His research was retracted, he lost his medical license, and the whole thing sparked a global health crisis. Cases of measles skyrocketed because parents stopped vaccinating their kids. But here's the kicker. Mark knew all this. He'd learned it in med school. So why did he fall for it? Was he just tired? Was he stressed? Or was there something deeper at play? Something that could make a guy like him, a doctor with years of training, throw logic out the window? Here's where we gotta get real, bro. Most of us think stupidity only happens to other people. You know, the ones who didn't go to college, the ones who fall for every scam on the internet. But that's a big mistake. One of the sneakiest things about stupidity is that it loves to prey on smart people. Folks like Mark, folks like you and me. Psychologists call it the overconfidence bias. The smarter you are, the more you think you're immune to being wrong. And that's exactly what makes you vulnerable. You start believing you've got it all figured out, so you don't double-check that Reddit thread. You don't question that viral post. You don't stop to think, wait, does this actually make sense? And before you know it, you're down a rabbit hole, believing something that could ruin everything you care about. So what's driving this? How does a guy like Mark, a doctor, a dad, a hero, end up falling for something so dangerous? And more importantly, how can you make sure it doesn't happen to you? We're going to unpack all of that, man, because this isn't just about Mark's story. It's about yours too. Stick with me, because what we're about to dive into might just change the way you see the world and yourself forever. Let's figure out why smart people do dumb things and how you can break free from the hidden power of stupidity. Let's take a step back, bro, and think about something for a second. You've probably heard stories about evil people doing evil things. Guys like Bernie Madoff, the Wall Street big shot who ran the biggest Ponzi scheme in history, scamming folks out of billions back in the 2000s. Madoff knew exactly what he was doing. He lied, he cheated, he hurt people on purpose, all while living it up in his fancy Manhattan penthouse. That's evil. Plain and simple, right? You'd think that's the kind of thing that ruins lives, destroys societies, the bad guys with bad intentions. What if I told you that evil isn't the biggest threat out there? What if I told you there's something even scarier, something that can do more damage than a guy like Madoff ever could, something that doesn't even know it's doing harm? That's what Dietrich Bonhoeffer figured out, man. And it's gonna make you rethink everything you thought you knew about what's really dangerous in this world. Bonhoeffer said the greatest threat to civilization isn't evil people doing evil things, it's ordinary people, good people, smart people who've stopped thinking for themselves. He called this the power of stupidity, and he argued it's way more dangerous than evil ever could be. Now, I know that sounds wild, bro. So let's break it down with a comparison that'll hit you right in the gut. Picture two scenarios. First, you've got a guy like Madoff. Pure evil, right? He's running his scam, knowing he's screwing people over. But here's the thing about evil. It always carries the seeds of its own downfall. Madoff's greed made him sloppy. He got caught in 2008, sent to prison for 150 years, and his whole empire crumbled. Evil creates unease, resistance, even in the people doing it. Madoff probably had sleepless nights, knowing deep down he was wrong, and that guilt, that inner conflict, eventually led to his collapse. Evil can be fought, man. It can be exposed, it can be stopped, because even the bad guys know they're bad. Now let's flip it to the other side, stupidity. Picture a mom in suburban Ohio. Let's call her Sarah. Sarah's a good person, bro. She's a nurse, works long shifts saving lives, volunteers at her kids' school, goes to church every Sunday. But during the COVID-19 pandemic, Sarah stumbles across a Facebook group claiming vaccines are a government plot to control people. She's stressed, working 12-hour shifts, worried about her kids, and this group makes her feel like she's found the truth. So she stops vaccinating her kids, even posts about it online, convincing other parents in her community to do the same. A year later, her town sees a measles outbreak. Kids get sick, some end up in the hospital, and Sarah's own son nearly doesn't make it. She didn't mean to hurt anyone, man. She thought she was protecting her kids, doing the right thing. That's stupidity, bro, and it's why Bonhoeffer said it's so much scarier than evil. Here's the chilling difference. Evil knows it's wrong, which makes it vulnerable. Madoff knew he was a crook. He had to lie, cover his tracks, and that guilt gave the feds a way to take him down. But stupidity? It doesn't even know it's wrong. Sarah genuinely believed she was being a good mom, so no amount of facts, no amount of pleading from doctors could change her mind. She was immune to correction because she thought she was on the side of good. That's what Bonhoeffer saw in Nazi Germany. People who weren't evil, but who believed they were doing the right thing by supporting a regime that led to millions of deaths. And that's what makes stupidity so dangerous, bro. It spreads like wildfire, and you can't fight it with logic because it doesn't even see the problem. Let's get real for a second. Have you ever fallen into this trap yourself? Maybe not something as big as vaccines, but think about it. Have you ever believed something just because everyone around you did? Like back in 2016, when half the internet swore that eating Tide Pods was a legit challenge. Smart kids, bro, ended up in the ER because they didn't stop to think, wait, is this actually a good idea? That's the power of stupidity at work, man. It doesn't need malice to cause damage, just a lack of independent thought. And the scariest part? We're all vulnerable to it, no matter how smart we think we are. So, why does this happen? How do good people, smart people, end up doing things that hurt themselves and everyone around them? And more importantly, how can you make sure you don't fall into the same trap? We're gonna dig deeper into Bonhoeffer's story, because what he saw in Nazi Germany isn't just history. It's a warning for all of us, right here, right now. Let's figure out how this hidden force works and what you can do to break free. Let's take a trip back in time, bro, to a place where the stakes couldn't have been higher. Germany in the 1930s. Picture a young guy named Dietrich Bonhoeffer, born in 1906, growing up in a well-off, intellectual family in Breslau. His dad was a big-shot psychiatrist, his mom a teacher, and Dietrich himself was a straight-A student, the kind of guy who'd probably be valedictorian if he went to your high school. He had every reason to believe in the power of brains, education, and rational thinking. After all, he was surrounded by it his whole life. By his early 20s, Dietrich became a Lutheran pastor, a man of faith who thought that if you just reasoned with people, showed them the truth, they'd do the right thing. But then the Nazi Party started rising to power, and what he saw next didn't just shake his faith in human smarts, it damn near broke it. Now, let's set the scene, man. It's 1933, and Adolf Hitler has just become Chancellor of Germany. The country's in chaos. Unemployment's through the roof. People are pissed about the Treaty of Versailles, and there's this growing wave of fear and anger. The Nazis start spreading their propaganda, blaming Jews, communists, anyone who doesn't fit their idea of pure German for all the country's problems. And here's where it gets wild. Bro, Bonhoeffer starts noticing something that doesn't add up. He's seeing people he respects, people he thought were too smart to fall for this crap, starting to buy into it. We're not talking about uneducated folks here. These were professors at top universities, doctors saving lives, even fellow pastors preaching love on Sundays, all turning around and supporting policies that went against everything they stood for. Bonhoeffer's watching his own neighbors, his own colleagues, people he'd have deep conversations with over coffee, suddenly cheering for a regime that's rounding up Jews, shutting down free speech, and preaching hate. What the hell is going on? Here's a real story that hits hard, bro. One of Bonhoeffer's mentors at the University of Berlin was a guy named Adolf von Harnack, a theology professor, a brilliant mind, someone who'd spent his life fighting for academic freedom. But by 1933, Harnack starts towing the Nazi line, signing a public statement supporting Hitler's regime. Bonhoeffer couldn't believe it. This was a guy who taught him to question everything, to stand up for what's right, and now he's backing a government that's burning books and silencing dissent. It wasn't just Harnack. Bonhoeffer saw this everywhere. Pastors who preached "Love thy neighbor" on Sunday were saluting swastikas on Monday. Doctors who'd taken an oath to do no harm were turning a blind eye to forced sterilizations. These weren't evil people, man. They weren't monsters. They were good, smart folks who'd somehow stopped thinking for themselves, caught up in a wave of fear, pressure, and groupthink that Bonhoeffer would later call the power of stupidity. Fast forward to 1943, and Bonhoeffer's sitting in a prison cell, waiting to be executed for his role in a plot to assassinate Hitler. He's got nothing left but a pen and some paper. And that's where he writes down his most haunting observation. Against stupidity, we are defenseless. Neither protests nor the use of force accomplish anything here. Reasons fall on deaf ears. What he saw in Nazi Germany wasn't just about propaganda or brainwashing. It was about how even the smartest people can abandon their own reasoning when the pressure's on. Fear of being ostracized, the need to fit in, the comfort of simple answers in a chaotic world. It all added up to a society where good people did terrible things, not because they were evil, but because they stopped asking questions. Now you might be thinking, that's crazy, bro. But that was Nazi Germany. Things like that don't happen here in the US, right? Hold up, man. Because this isn't just some history lesson. What Bonhoeffer saw back then is happening right now, all around us. Think about the anti-vax movement we talked about earlier. Good, smart parents like Mark, buying into conspiracies because they're scared, stressed, and surrounded by a crowd that's all saying the same thing. Or take the 2020 election chaos in the States. Millions of Americans, including doctors, lawyers, even professors, spreading wild claims about voter fraud. Not because they were evil, but because they got caught in an echo chamber of fear and anger. Bonhoeffer's warning isn't stuck in the past. It's a wake-up call for us, right here, right now. So, how does this happen? What's driving even the smartest people to stop thinking, to fall into this trap of stupidity? And more importantly, how can you make sure you don't end up like them? We're going to dive deeper into the systems that fuel this mess, because it's not just about individual choices. It's about the world we're living in, and how it's designed to keep us from thinking straight. Let's figure out what's really behind this, and how you can break free before it's too late. All right, bro, let's zoom out for a second and look at the bigger picture. You're probably thinking, okay, I get it. Stupidity isn't just about being dumb, and it's not just about evil. It's about good people, smart people, stopping to think for themselves. But why does this keep happening? Why did it happen in Nazi Germany? And why is it still happening today with stuff like the anti-vax movement? Here's the thing Bonhoeffer figured out that'll blow your mind. Stupidity isn't just a personal problem. It's a societal one. It's not about you or me being dumb on our own. It's about the systems we live in, our economy, our media, our politics, being designed to make us take mentally shortcuts, to stop thinking deeply. Because when we do, those systems make bank. Let's break this down, man, because once you see how this works, you'll never look at the world the same way again. Picture this. It's 2021, right in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic, and you're scrolling through TikTok after a long day. You're beat. Maybe you're working 2 jobs to pay off student loans, or you're stressed about rent going up again in your city, like in Austin, where rents jumped 40% that year. You're not in the mood to think hard. You just want to zone out. You come across a video from some random dude claiming that the COVID vaccine is a government plot to implant microchips. The video's got dramatic music, flashy edits, and this guy's yelling about how Big Pharma's controlling us. It's got 2 million likes, thousands of comments saying stuff like, "Wake up, sheeple!" You're skeptical, but you're tired, you're stressed, and that video hits you right in the gut. You don't check the facts. You don't have the energy to look up studies or read what the CDC says. So you share it with your boys in a group chat, and before you know it, you're part of the problem, spreading misinformation that leads to fewer people getting vaccinated. In 2021 alone, bro, vaccine hesitancy in the US led to over 200,000 preventable COVID deaths. That's the kind of real-world impact we're talking about. Now here's the kicker. That TikTok video didn't go viral by accident. It's not just because you were tired that day. It's because the whole system, our economy, our media, our tech, is built to profit off your mental shortcuts, to keep you from thinking too hard. Bonhoeffer saw this back in Nazi Germany, when propaganda spread through newspapers and radio. But today, it's on steroids, man. Let's break it down. First, think about social media platforms like TikTok. They make billions when you react emotionally instead of thinking critically. That video about microchips got pushed to your feed because TikTok's algorithm knows fear and anger get more clicks, more shares, more watch time. A 2018 MIT study found that false info spread 6 times faster than the truth online. And it's not because people are dumb. It's because lies are designed to hit your emotions, to make you feel something before you think. TikTok doesn't care if the info's true. They care that you keep scrolling, and they made $12 billion in ad revenue in 2021 alone by keeping you hooked on stuff like that. But it's not just tech, bro. Our whole economic system is in on it. Think about why you were so stressed that day, scrolling TikTok instead of fact-checking. Maybe you're working 50 hours a week at a job that barely pays the bills, like the 60% of Americans who live paycheck to paycheck, according to a 2021 survey. Maybe you're drowning in student debt, like the 1.7 trillion Americans owed that year. When you're stressed, broke, and overworked, you don't have the mental bandwidth to dig into complex stuff like vaccine science. Economists call this rational ignorance. It's easier to just believe the TikTok video than to spend hours researching the truth. But here's the messed up part. What's rational for you as an individual? Taking the shortcut, not thinking too hard, creates irrational chaos for everyone else. That's exactly what Bonhoeffer saw in Nazi Germany. People under pressure, scared for their jobs, their families, their lives, taking the easy way out by going along with the crowd, even when the crowd was dead wrong. And let's not even get started on the news media, bro. They're just as bad. Outlets like Fox News or MSNBC don't make money off nuance. They make money off outrage. In 2020, during the George Floyd protests, Fox News ran headlines like "Riots Destroy America," while MSNBC pushed "Systemic racism everywhere." Both sides were raking in clicks, but neither was giving you the full story. Like how most protests were peaceful, or how complex police reform really is. They're not trying to make you think, they're trying to make you feel, because that's what gets you to keep watching. And they made billions that year doing it. Politicians play the same game. Think about election slogans like "Make America Great Again" or "Build Back Better." They're simple, catchy, and don't make you think too hard about the actual policies. That's why they win votes, man. They're feeding your brain the easy answers it craves when you're already overwhelmed. So what's the big takeaway here, bro? Stupidity isn't just your fault. It's baked into the systems we live in. Social media, The economy, the news, politics, they're all designed to profit when you take mental shortcuts, when you stop thinking for yourself. But here's the thing. Those systems don't care about the consequences. They don't care that vaccine hesitancy killed 200,000 Americans in 2021, or that misinformation about elections led to the January 6th Capitol riot. They just care about their bottom line. And that's why Bonhoeffer's warning is so damn urgent. We're not just fighting our own laziness here. We're fighting a whole world that's built to keep us from thinking straight. So, how do we even start to fight back? And what's driving this on a deeper level? Like, what's going on in our heads that makes us so easy to manipulate? Let's dig into that next, because it's about to get even crazier. All right, bro, let's get into something that hits even closer to home. We've talked about how systems, like social media, the economy, and politics, are built to profit off your mental shortcuts, pushing you into stupidity without you even noticing. But there's another layer to this. Man, something deep inside your head that makes it so easy for those systems to mess with you. It's not just about the world out there. It's about what's going on in here, in your brain, in your emotions. Fear, anger, stress. These feelings aren't just random. They're the fuel that stupidity runs on. The stuff that hijacks even the sharpest minds and makes them do dumb things. Let's break this down, because once you see how your emotions play into this, you'll start spotting it everywhere, including in yourself. Picture this. It's 2020, right at the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic, and you've got a guy named Chris, a software engineer from Seattle. Chris is a smart dude. He graduated from MIT, codes for a big tech firm, makes 6 figures, and he's the kind of guy you'd call if you needed help with anything complicated. But Chris is stressed out of his mind, man. He's working from home, stuck in his tiny apartment, trying to juggle Zoom meetings while his Wi-Fi keeps crapping out. He's worried about his parents catching COVID, his job's on shaky ground because of layoffs, and he's doom-scrolling Twitter every night, seeing headlines about hospitals overflowing and people dying. One night, he sees a tweet from some random account claiming the vaccine is a government plot to track people with microchips. Normally, Chris would laugh that off. He's a tech guy. He knows that's ridiculous. But he's exhausted. He's scared. And that tweet hits him right in the gut. His fear takes over, and instead of fact-checking, he retweets it to his 5,000 followers, adding, "This makes sense. Why else would they rush the vaccine so fast?" Within a week, that tweet's been shared 10,000 times. And Chris has a bunch of his coworkers messaging him saying they're not getting vaccinated either. A year later, one of those coworkers ends up in the ICU with COVID because Chris's retweet helped convince him to skip the shot. Here's the deal, bro. Chris isn't dumb. He's an MIT grad, for crying out loud. So why he fall for something so obviously wrong? It's not because he's evil, and it's not just because of TikTok algorithms or economic stress, though those played a part. It's because his emotions hijacked his brain. Fear, anger, stress, they're like jet fuel for stupidity, man. When you're scared, like Chris was, your brain goes into survival mode. It's a leftover from our caveman days, when you had to decide fast whether that rustling in the bushes was a tiger or just the wind. Back then, thinking too hard could get you killed, so your brain evolved to prioritize speed over accuracy, to react emotionally before you think logically. That's why fear makes you jump at shadows. It's your brain saying, "Don't think, just run." But in today's world, that same wiring screws us over. When you're scared about a pandemic, or angry about politics, or stressed about bills, your brain doesn't want to sit down and fact-check a tweet. It wants to feel safe, to feel certain. so it grabs onto the first thing that makes sense emotionally, like a conspiracy theory that says, here's who to blame. Let's dig deeper, because this isn't just about fear. Anger plays a huge role too. Think about the 2020 election in the US. You had millions of Americans, including smart folks like lawyers and engineers, spreading wild claims about voter fraud. Why? Because they were pissed off, angry about lockdowns, angry about the economy, angry about their guy not winning. That anger shut down their ability to think straight. A 2019 study from the University of California found that when people are angry, they're 50% more likely to believe fake news, because anger makes you crave simple answers, like the election was stolen, instead of digging into the messy truth, like how elections are actually run, with checks and balances that make fraud on that scale damn near impossible. But anger doesn't care about facts, man. It wants a target, and stupidity gives it one. Now, here's where it gets personal, bro. Have you ever snapped at someone you love because you were stressed or pissed off? Maybe your boss chewed you out at work, so you came home and yelled at your girlfriend over something stupid, like her leaving dishes in the sink. You didn't mean to, but in that moment, your anger took over, and you didn't think, you just reacted. That's the same mechanism that leads to stupidity, man. When you're emotional, whether it's fear, anger, or stress, your brain takes a shortcut, skips the logic, and goes straight for what feels good in the moment. And in today's world, with all the pressures we've talked about, those emotions are always on high, making it easier than ever to fall into stupidity. So, what's the big lesson here, bro? Your emotions aren't your enemy. They're part of being human, but they can be hijacked, turning even the smartest minds into tools for stupidity. Fear makes you cling to simple lies because they feel safe. Anger makes you lash out with fake news because it feels right. And stress makes you too tired to even care about the truth. But here's the good news. Once you see this happening, you can start to fight back. How do you stop your emotions from running the show? And what's the next piece of this puzzle? What's making us so emotional in the first place? Let's dive into that, because it's about to get even more real. All right, bro, we've dug into how systems like the economy and media profit off your mental shortcuts, and how emotions like fear and anger can hijack even the sharpest minds, turning them into tools for stupidity. But now, we gotta talk about the rocket fuel that's making all of this way worse: technology. I'm not talking about your grandpa's radio broadcasts or the newspapers Bonhoeffer saw in Nazi Germany. I'm talking about the stuff you've got in your pocket right now: your phone, social media, and the algorithms running the show. These things aren't just tools, man. They're designed to amplify stupidity like never before, exploiting the way your brain works with surgical precision. Let's break this down, because once you see how this echo chamber trap works, you'll start noticing it everywhere, and it's gonna change the way you scroll. Picture this. It's 2024, and you're chilling on your couch in Chicago, scrolling through X, after a long day at work. You've been seeing a lot of political drama lately, especially with the US election heating up. You come across a video that looks like it's straight from a news broadcast. A politician you already kinda distrust is on screen, saying some wild stuff, like, "We to shut down all the voting stations in blue states. They're cheating." The video's got 3 million views, thousands of retweets, and the comments are going nuts, calling for protests. You're pissed off, man. You feel like this is proof of everything you've been worried about. So you retweet it, adding, "This is insane. We can't let this happen." But here's the twist, bro. A week later, you find out that video was a deep fake, created by some random AI tool to stir up chaos. It wasn't real. The politician never said that. But by then, the damage is done. That fake video sparked protests in California, with hundreds of people showing up at polling stations, some even getting violent. And you, without even meaning to, helped spread that mess to your 2,000 followers. Now, let's talk about what just happened there, bro. Because this isn't just a one-off thing. It's how technology amplifies stupidity in the digital age. First off, that deepfake video didn't go viral by accident. Social media platforms like X are built to push content that gets a reaction out of you. And they don't care if it's true or not. A 2018 study from MIT found that false information spreads 6 times faster than the truth online. And it's because lies are designed to hit your emotions, fear, anger, outrage, harder than facts ever will. That fake video made you feel something, man, and that's why you shared it without thinking twice. X's algorithm knew it'd get a rise out of you, so it pushed it to your feed, and they made money off every retweet. $20 billion in ad revenue in 2024, to be exact. They're not trying to make you smarter. They're trying to keep you hooked, and stupidity is the bait. But it's not just about fake videos, bro. It's about the echo chambers these platforms create. Think about your own feed for a second. You ever notice how it always shows you stuff you already agree with? If you're into conservative politics, your feed's probably full of MAGA posts. If you lean liberal, it's all about social justice and climate change. That's no accident, man. Algorithms are designed to keep you in a bubble, feeding you more of what you like so you don't leave the app. Back in Bonhoeffer's day, you'd at least hear different opinions at the local bar or church. But today, you're stuck in an echo chamber, where everyone's saying the same thing, and it feels so good to be right that you stop questioning anything. Solomon Asch's conformity experiments from the 1950s showed this in action. 75% of people will go along with a group giving obviously wrong answers, even when they know the group's wrong, just because they don't want to stand out. Now imagine that, but with millions of people in your feed all agreeing with each other. That's the echo chamber trap, bro. And it's why stupidity spreads like wildfire online. Let's get even crazier. AI deepfakes are taking this to a whole new level. That fake video of the politician you retweeted, it wasn't made by some Hollywood studio. It was whipped up in minutes by a $50 AI tool anyone can buy. In 2024, deepfakes caused chaos all over the US. From fake videos of celebrities endorsing scams to political stunts like the one you saw. The tech's getting so good that even experts can't tell what's real anymore. A 2023 study from Stanford said 60% of Americans can't spot a deep fake, and that number's only going up. This isn't just about politics, man. Imagine a deep fake of your boss saying something awful, or your girlfriend supposedly confessing to cheating. It's not just misinformation anymore. It's reality itself being weaponized to mess with your head, making it easier than ever to fall into stupidity. Here's the big lesson, bro. Technology isn't neutral. It's built to exploit how your brain works, to keep you reacting instead of thinking. Echo chambers make you feel right. Algorithms keep you emotional. And deep fakes make you question what's even real. It's a perfect storm for stupidity, and we're all caught in it. So, how do you break out of this trap? And what's the next piece of this puzzle? How does stupidity mess up your everyday life, like your relationships and decisions? Let's dive into that next, because this is about to hit even closer to home. All right, bro, let's bring this even closer to home now. We've been talking about some big, scary stuff. How stupidity messed up entire societies in Nazi Germany. How it's driving vaccine hesitancy and election chaos today. And how tech, like social media and deepfakes, is making it worse. But here's the thing, man. Stupidity isn't just out there in the world, causing global problems. It's right here, in your everyday life, sneaking into the decisions you make and the relationships you care about most. It's not just about the big picture. It's about your family, your friends, your girl, even the way you handle your money and health. Let's break this down, because once you see how stupidity can wreck the stuff that matters to you, you'll be ready to fight back like never before. Picture this. It's Thanksgiving 2021, and you're at your parents' house in Atlanta, sitting around the dinner table with your whole family. Your mom, dad, your sister, and her husband, Jason, who's a pretty chill dude, works as a high school teacher. Things are going great at first. The turkey's on point, everyone's laughing about old family stories, and you're feeling good to be together after a rough year with COVID. But then the conversation turns to vaccines. Your mom mentions she just got her booster shot, and Jason, who's been quiet, suddenly pipes up. "I'm not getting that shot," he says, his voice all serious. "I read online that it messes with your DNA, makes you infertile, all kinds of stuff. It's a big pharma scam." You stare at him, bro, thinking, what the hell? Jason's a teacher. He's gotta know better than this. Your sister jumps in, trying to calm him down, saying, "Babe, that's not true. There's no evidence for that." But Jason doubles down, pulling up some sketchy website on his phone, saying, "Look, it's all here. They're hiding the truth." Things get heated fast. Your mom looks worried. Your dad starts arguing with Jason, and your sister's on the verge of tears. By the end of the night, everyone's barely speaking. And Thanksgiving's ruined. A year later, your sister tells you they're struggling. Jason's obsession with conspiracy theories has driven a wedge between them, and they're even talking about splitting up. Here's the deal, bro. Jason isn't a bad guy. He's a teacher, a husband, a guy who coaches Little League on weekends. He's got a good heart. But that night, at Thanksgiving, stupidity took over, and it didn't just ruin dinner. It started tearing his family apart. That sketchy website he found, it played right into his fear. Fear of losing control. Fear of the unknown during a crazy time like the pandemic. And just like we talked about last time, social media algorithms fed him more of that fear, keeping him in an echo chamber where everyone agreed with him. He stopped thinking for himself, stopped questioning, and it didn't just hurt him. It hurt everyone around him. In 2021, bro, the US saw a 30% rise in divorce rates. And family therapists reported a big spike in couples fighting over stuff like vaccines and politics. Stupidity wasn't just a global problem. It was breaking up families left and right. But it's not just relationships, man. Stupidity can mess with your daily decisions too, from your money to your health. Let's say you're at a bar in Miami with your boys one night in 2022, and one of them, let's call him Dave, starts talking about this can't-lose crypto investment he found on Reddit. "Bro, it's the next Bitcoin. Some dude made millions off it already," he says, showing you a screenshot of a guy flexing with a Lambo. You're a little skeptical, but Dave's hyped, and you don't want to miss out. FOMO hits hard, man. So you throw $5,000 into this random coin, thinking you're about to get rich. 2 months later, the coin crashes. It was a pump and dump scam, and you're out $5,000. Turns out that Reddit post was part of a coordinated scheme to hype the coin and trick people like you into buying. You're not dumb, bro. You've got a steady job. You're good with numbers. But stupidity got you. That FOMO, that fear of missing out, shut down your ability to think straight. You didn't check the coin's history, didn't look up the team behind it, didn't even Google, is this a scam? In 2022 alone, Americans lost $2.5 billion to crypto scams. And most of those victims weren't idiots. They were regular folks caught up in emotional shortcuts. Here's the big takeaway, bro. Stupidity isn't just some far-off problem that happens in history books or on the news. It's right here, in your life, messing with the people you love and the choices you make every day. It's the fight you had with your girl because you believed some dumb rumor online without checking. It's the money you lost because you followed the crowd instead of thinking for yourself. It's the family dinner that turned into a shouting match because someone couldn't let go of a conspiracy theory. And the scariest part, you don't even see it coming until it's too late. So how does this play out in the bigger picture? Like, how's it affecting the way we learn, the way we're taught to think? And what can you do to stop stupidity from wrecking your life? Let's dive into that next, because this is about to get even more real. We've been peeling back the layers of stupidity, how it's more dangerous than evil, how it took over Nazi Germany, how systems profit off it, how your emotions fuel it, and how tech makes it explode in the digital age. We've even seen how it messes up your everyday life, from your relationships to your wallet. But here's something we gotta talk about now: education. You'd think education would be the ultimate weapon against stupidity, right? I mean, if you go to school, learn your facts, get a degree, you should be safe, smarter, better at thinking for yourself, less likely to fall for dumb stuff like conspiracies or scams. But here's the hard truth, man. Education, the way it's set up today, isn't stopping stupidity. It's sometimes making it worse. Let's break this down, because once you see how education fails us, you'll understand why even straight A students can fall into the stupidity trap. And what we can do to fix it. Picture this. It's 2015, and you're sitting in a high school classroom in Dallas, Texas. You're 16, acing your history class, memorizing dates and names for the big test next week. Your teacher, Mrs. Carter, is drilling you on the Civil War, when it started, who fought who, all that stuff. You nail the test, get an A, and you're feeling like a genius. But here's the thing, bro. Mrs. Carter never taught you to question the textbook. She didn't ask you to dig deeper. Like, why did the Civil War really start? Was it just about slavery? Or were there bigger economic and social tensions at play? She didn't teach you to look at primary sources, like letters from soldiers, to see what they actually thought. Instead, you learned to memorize, spit out answers, and move on. Fast forward to 2020, and you're 21 now, scrolling through Reddit, where you see a post claiming the Civil War wasn't about slavery at all. It was about states' rights. You don't question it, because you were never taught how. You share the post, thinking you're woke, but you just spread a half-truth that whitewashes history. That's stupidity, man, and your education didn't protect you from it. Here's the deal, bro. The way we do education in the US isn't built to fight stupidity. It's built to churn out test takers, not thinkers. Think about your own school days. How many times did you have to memorize stuff for a grade? In 2023, the U.S. Department of Education reported that 70% of high school assessments are based on rote memorization, not critical thinking. That means most of what you learned was about remembering facts, not questioning them. And it doesn't stop at high school. Colleges are in on it too. A 2022 study from Stanford found that 45% of U.S. college grads can't evaluate the credibility of online sources, even after 4 years of higher ed. So you've got people with degrees, doctors, engineers, teachers like Jason from Our Thanksgiving Story, who still fall for conspiracies because they were never taught how to think, just what to think. That's why even the most educated folks can end up spreading stupidity, like the 30% of U.S. doctors who shared vaccine misinformation on social media during the COVID pandemic, according to a 2021 study. But it doesn't have to be this way, bro. There are places doing it right, and we can learn from them. Let's look at Finland, a country that's been killing it with education for years. In Finland, kids aren't just memorizing, they're taught to question everything. In a typical Finnish classroom, a teacher might give students a fake news article and say, "Figure out if this is real." They'll have to check sources, look for bias, and debate with their classmates. It's messy, it's hard, but it works. A 2022 report from the OECD showed that Finnish teens are 50% less likely to believe fake news compared to American teens, because they're trained to think critically from day one. Compare that to the US, where only 20% of high schools even teach media literacy, according to the National Association for Media Literacy Education. That's a huge gap, man, and it's why stupidity keeps winning, even among the smart crowd. Here's a real-life example of how this plays out, bro. In 2024, a school district in Portland, Oregon, started a pilot program teaching critical thinking skills to middle schoolers. They had kids analyze TikTok videos, some real, some fake, and figure out which ones were legit. One kid, let's call him Ethan, found a viral video claiming 5G towers were causing cancer. He checked the sources, found they were bogus, and didn't share it with his friends. A year later, Ethan's class had 40% fewer kids sharing misinformation online compared to other schools in the district. That's the power of teaching kids to think, not just memorize. Man, it's like giving them a shield against stupidity. So what's the big lesson here, bro? Education as it stands isn't saving us from stupidity. It's leaving us wide open to it because it's focused on facts, not thinking. But it doesn't have to be that way. We can learn from places like Finland, from programs like the one in Portland, and start teaching kids and ourselves how to question, how to dig deeper, how to think for real. Because if we don't, stupidity's gonna keep creeping into our lives, wrecking our decisions, our relationships, everything we care about. So, how do we take this to the next level? How do you start fighting back against stupidity in your own life right now? Let's get into that next, because we're about to get real practical. We've been on a wild ride so far, uncovering how stupidity isn't just being dumb, but a dangerous force that's wrecked societies, hijacked smart minds, and even messed with your own life. We've seen how systems profit off it, how emotions fuel it, how tech amplifies it, and how education's been letting us down. But here's the good news, man. You don't have to be a victim of this. Stupidity might be powerful, but it's not unstoppable. You can break free, and I'm gonna show you how. Both for yourself and for the world around you. We're getting practical now, bro. With steps you can start taking today to shield yourself from stupidity and bigger ideas to change the game for everyone. Let's dive in, because this is where you take back control. First, let's talk about you, how you can fight stupidity in your own life, starting right now. Step 1. Cultivate what psychologists call intellectual humility. That's just a fancy way of saying, admit you don't know everything, bro. It's about recognizing that your knowledge is always incomplete, and you could be wrong, even about stuff you're super sure of. Here's how you do it. Every week, set aside 20 minutes to read something that challenges your beliefs. If you're all about gun rights, read a thoughtful article from someone who's pro-gun control, like a piece from The Atlantic, breaking down stats on gun violence. Don't just skim it to argue back. Really listen to their best points, write them down, and ask yourself, what if they're right? In 2023, a guy named Ryan in Denver did this exact thing. He was a hardcore anti-vaxxer, but he started reading pro-vaccine arguments on Reddit, not to fight, but to understand. After a month, he realized his fears were based on bad info, got his kids vaccinated, and even posted about it online, inspiring 50 of his followers to do the same. That's the power of intellectual humility, bro. It's like a vaccine for stupidity. Step 2. Embrace productive ignorance. That means asking yourself, what evidence would change my mind? If you can't think of anything, that's a red flag. You're too locked into your beliefs. And that's where stupidity sneaks in. Let's say you're convinced electric cars are a scam, that they're worse for the environment than gas cars. Ask yourself, what would it take to change my view? A study showing EVs cut emissions by 50% over gas cars? Then go look for that study. Don't just sit on your ass feeling right. A 2022 study from the Union of Concerned Scientists found EVs produce half the emissions of gas cars over their lifetime, even accounting for battery production. If you'd taken that step, you'd either adjust your view or at least have a better argument. Either way, you're thinking, not just believing. Step 3. Slow down before you share anything online. We've all been there, bro. You see a crazy post, like 5G causes cancer, and you want to share it to warn your boys. But hold up. Take 60 seconds to check it first. Google, does 5G cause cancer, CDC? And see what comes up. Spoiler, the CDC says there's no evidence linking 5G to cancer. That quick pause can stop you from spreading stupidity. In 2024, a group of college students in Boston started a 60-second rule challenge. They wouldn't share anything online without checking it first. After a month, they cut their misinformation shares by 70%, and their group chat became a lot less chaotic. You can do that too, man. It's a small step with big impact. Step 4. Control your emotions before they control you. We talked about how fear and anger fuel stupidity. When you're stressed, you're more likely to fall for dumb stuff. So practice a little mindfulness, bro. Next time you're pissed off, like when you see a tweet about illegal immigrants stealing jobs, take 10 deep breaths before you react. Then ask yourself, is this true? A 2023 study from the American Enterprise Institute found immigrants actually create more jobs than they take, boosting the economy by $1.6 trillion a year. That pause can save you from stupidity and maybe a pointless argument with your buddy. Now, let's zoom out. What can we do as a society to fight this? First, we gotta demand transparency from social media platforms. These companies, like X, TikTok, Meta, make billions off algorithms that feed you misinformation. We need laws forcing them to show how their algorithms work, like how X ranks posts to keep you angry. In 2024, the EU passed the Digital Services Act, making platforms disclose their algorithm biases. It cut misinformation shares in Europe by 25% in just 6 months. The US needs to step up and do the same, bro. Second, we need to fund media literacy campaigns, big time. Imagine if every kid in America learned how to spot fake news, just like they learn math. Programs like SleepWise in the US are already doing this. They teach teens to check sources and spot bias. In 2023, SleepWise trained 1 million students, and those kids were 40% less likely to share fake news than their peers. We need to scale that up. Make it mandatory in every school so the next generation's ready to fight stupidity. Third, let's redesign platforms to reward thinking, not reacting. Right now, X gives you clout for viral rants, not thoughtful posts. What if we had apps that gamify critical thinking? FactCheck.org could launch a feature where you earn points for debunking fake news, like a Stupidity Hunter badge for spotting deep fakes. Imagine if you got more likes for sharing a well-researched post than a rage-bait meme. That'd change the game, bro. Finally, we need economic policies that give people breathing room to think. When you're working 60 hours a week, drowning in debt, you don't have the mental space to question stuff. In 2022, Denmark's universal healthcare and shorter work weeks gave people more time to engage with complex issues. They're 30% less likely to fall for fake news than Americans, according to a 2023 study. We need that here. Better wages, affordable healthcare, less stress, so people can think straight. Here's the takeaway, bro. Fighting stupidity starts with you. Small steps like intellectual humility, questioning your beliefs, slowing down, and controlling your emotions can shield you from falling into the trap. But we can't stop there. We gotta push for bigger changes, like transparency, media literacy, better platforms, and economic relief to make thinking easier for everyone. So what's the final piece of this puzzle? How do we live Bonhoeffer's legacy in today's world? Let's wrap this up with a challenge that'll change how you think forever. We've come a long way on this journey, uncovering the hidden power of stupidity, seeing how it's more dangerous than evil, how it took over Nazi Germany, how systems profit off it, how emotions and tech fuel it, how it messes with your life, and how education's been letting us down. Last time, we got practical with steps to break free, both for you and for society. But now, man, let's wrap this up with the heart of it all. The legacy of Dietrich Bonhoeffer, the guy who started this whole conversation. His story isn't just a history lesson, bro. It's a call to action, a challenge for you to live with the kind of courage that can change the world. Let's dive in one last time, because this is where it all comes together. Picture this. It's April 9th, 1945, in a Nazi prison camp called Flossenburg. Bonhoeffer's been locked up for 2 years, arrested for his role in a plot to assassinate Hitler. He's 39 years old, a pastor who could have stayed quiet, lived a safe life, but instead he chose to fight back, not with guns, but with his mind, his faith, his refusal to stop thinking for himself. That morning, the Nazis drag him out of his cell. He knows what's coming. He's been sentenced to death. A fellow prisoner later said Bonhoeffer's last words were calm, almost peaceful. "This is the end for me, the beginning of life." They took him to the gallows, and just weeks before Germany surrendered, Bonhoeffer was gone. But his ideas, bro, they're still here, echoing louder than ever. Because what he left behind wasn't just a warning about stupidity. It was a blueprint for how to fight it, a concept he called costly grace. Costly grace is Bonhoeffer's way of saying that real courage, real thinking, comes with a price. It's not the easy path, man. It's the hard one, the one that might cost you friends, popularity, even your safety. It's about thinking independently, questioning everything, standing up for truth, even when it's painful, even when everyone around you is going along with the crowd. Bonhoeffer lived that out. He could have kept his head down, stayed safe as a pastor, but he chose to resist. He could have backed off, taken the safe road, kept his cushy job at NBC where they didn't want to run the story. But he didn't. He kept digging, kept thinking, kept pushing for the truth, even when it cost him big time. That's costly grace, man. Standing fast when it's hard, when it's dangerous, when everyone else is looking the other way. And that story didn't just take down Weinstein. It sparked the Me Too movement, changing how we talk about power and accountability forever. Now, let's make this personal, bro, because you don't have to be a hero like Bonhoeffer or Pharaoh to live out costly grace. It starts with the small stuff, the choices you make every day. So here's my challenge for you. This week, find one belief you're dead sure of, something you'd argue about at the bar with your boys. Maybe it's politics, maybe it's vaccines, maybe it's whether pineapple belongs on pizza. Whatever it is, dig into the other side. Spend 30 minutes reading the best arguments against it, not to fight back, but to really understand. If your belief holds up, you'll feel stronger. If it doesn't, you'll learn something real. Either way, you're thinking, not just believing, and that's how you fight stupidity. And here's the bonus, bro. You'll get better at making decisions. You'll build confidence in your own mind, and you'll stop letting the world mess with your head. But don't stop there. Share this with someone who isn't afraid to think deeply, someone who'll take this challenge with you. Because in a world that's built to profit off our stupidity, the simple act of thinking for ourselves becomes the biggest rebellion we've got. Bonhoeffer paid the ultimate price to show us that. Man, he died so we could see what's at stake. So let's honor his legacy, bro. Let's be the kind of people who stand fast, who keep thinking, who choose costly grace over comfortable lies. Because if we don't, stupidity wins, and we lose everything that makes us human. What's one belief you're ready to question this week? Drop it in the comments. I want to hear your story, and I bet it'll inspire someone else to break free too. Let's do this together, because this fight's worth it.